Okay. Wow, it's been an afternoon trying to get this right, but I want to believe that this is right now. If you're on here and you can hear me, please let me know that you can hear me. Anybody, anyone, hello, anybody here? Can you hear me? Please just let me know you can hear me, and I'll just probably check on another device as well. Not sure why my audio has been acting up, so but I think I can see that my audio is up right now. Yes, awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for confirming that. That's giving me confidence. Yeah, I know that sounds really funny, but it's giving me confidence. So let's go straight into it. Hi everyone, my name is Kiki, and I am here to talk about fatherhood, or raising wholesome men. And I'm the founder of Joshua's Army, also the lead coach at Raising Wholesome Men Academy. Now, what we're talking about today is talking about fatherhood. And a lot of people complain, and a lot of people talk about, oh, my father is in the house, my father is always there, but I don't feel like he's present. I feel like I don't feel him on a daily basis. I don't feel his presence on a daily basis, or I grew up feeling fatherless. And today I just want to talk a bit about why that is. But maybe this is a disclaimer to say these reasons might not be applicable to everybody. Also, they are not excuses. I feel like they could make things easier for us. And when I feel a certain way, and I see, or I'm able to identify the why behind that thing that I'm experiencing, it helps me manage it better. Plus, it helps me become a better person, so that I don't fall into doing that same thing I am complaining about. So that's one of the reasons for this. And then if time permits, we would also talk about how we can, live above that and not find ourselves doing that same thing that we're complaining about or we didn't like. So the first thing is, for a lot of our parents, they're giving what they got. So my father, I feel fatherless. I feel like my father is there every day, yet I grew up feeling fatherless. Could that be how he was raised? Could that be what he was taught? Could that be, and I remember that a lot of the times growing up, one of the things I used to wonder is the silence, the way men go quiet. Now, my father was an exception. My father wasn't a quiet father. Oh, bless his soul. My father was not a quiet father. So when people tell me that I'm expressive, I'm vocal, I talk, that one of my gifting is being able to talk and express myself. I say that I got that from my father. And to be honest, you're looking for my dad, look my direction. Everything, a lot of things about me, my father. And I hope the things I complained about my father, I don't do to my children. But I'm a replica, like even my looks, my body build, everything, it's my dad, except his singing gift, right? Yeah, I wish I got that as well, but it is what it is. But looking at my dad, there's some things I felt, hey dad. But again, he grew up, quote and unquote, without a present father, right? So some of the things he does, could it be because he wasn't taught? Could it be because he didn't have that role model in his father? And in our parents' days, they don't get it wrong. I hope you get what I mean. They don't get it wrong. They always get it right. So even when they're doing the things that they weren't taught, even when they're doing things the way they shouldn't do it, unlike our generation that we go look for knowledge, we're hungry for knowledge, we're hungry to do it better. That generation was the perfect generation. So could it be that it wasn't taught that being present and providing that emotional buffer, emotional presence, emotional fatherhood is not part of what it was taught. Could it be that could that be the reason why it, I feel my dad was there every day, but he wasn't really present, and I feel fatherless? Also, could it be that it was emotionally absent? Yes, so it was emotionally absent, and because that could be because he himself was never fathered. He didn't have a present father. And my grandfather, I think, had four wives, and for them, for their parents, the number of wives, the number of children they've got is like what a good father, or it represents what a good parent is. Could it be that? Could that be what is translating into how it's behaving to us, or what we're experiencing from, or what I experienced from my father is, right? And then seeing that he had so many children, the goal for him wasn't to particularly raise any child to become anything, but to have children that will go to the farm and then he can order around and do things around with. That's how his father saw it. That's what it was for his father. So he didn't have any better blueprint. Like again, unlike us again in this our generation that we're hungry for information, we're hungry to do it better. Another thing I've got here is men were raised or taught to feel like their output determines their worth. So output in terms of how well they do in their work. So in our grandfather or the ancient days, right, when a man goes to the farm and is able to come back with produce, better than whoever, the barn is filled. That's where success is for them. And that's why a lot of our old parents, aged parents, even have many children, many wives to give them many children, because those children will determine the kind of work they're able to get in their farm or on their farm, and the children would also determine the kind of produce they get, right? Because of the toil and the amount of hands and the kind of work that goes into their farm, right? So their output in terms of their work, their output in terms of their produce, their output in terms of their financial stability is for them what fatherhood is, right? And so if I am providing, I've heard men say, I put food on the table, I provide this, I did that. What else do they want? And I've heard men also say, I do this, I do that, I do that. Every other thing is luxury. So, and luxury is not a priority for a lot of people, right? So, is it because they were taught that, their output, their work is what matters or what should matter? Another one is unresolved pain in themselves. A lot of us grew up wanting more, never getting more, and then we carry that pain for years and years and years. And they become unresolved pains that are translated to the next generation in various ways. In the way we communicate with our children, in the way we handle issues with our children. So could it be that? Or could it also be that a lot of us value correction over connection? And one thing I think about a lot is, where do we draw the line between connection and correction? Because the honest truth is both of them matter a great deal. But one should not outrule the other, right? As much as we want to correct our children, we want to also connect with them. And for me, one of the main reasons why I want to be able to connect with my children is because a time is coming where they would not necessarily need on the line, right? They will not necessarily be under the obligation to listen to me because they would have become adults. I was talking to my husband a few minutes ago, and I was saying to him that this these boys are children, but they are also adults. So they're children and also adults means they're at the point in their lives where they don't necessarily have to listen to us 100%, right? That's one. Two, they're children in that a man's brain is not 100% developed until he's 25, and both of them are not 25 years. So they're bound to make wrong decisions. They're bound to make mistakes at this point in their life, the age they are in. Even a 30-year-old man still make mistakes. Even a 40-year-old woman still makes mistakes. So how much more a child that is still developing, right? So why did I say that? Okay, so talking about correction, at this point, at this state they're in, we're still there to correct them, right? But how about when they get to the point where we can't correct them anymore? What I say is the connection we have built is what we now begin to do the correction. So from XYZ age to XYZ age, correction is what we do, teaching them, putting them right, and all of that. But if we lose sight of the connection in that phase, a phase is coming where it's no longer correction. We do not have that power, right? But the connection we have built here is what we will now be doing the correction here. So correct and build connection so that when they get to a certain phase, the connection that we have built, we begin to do the correction. I hope that makes sense. So that's me just digressing a bit there to pour out my brain in terms of connection and correction. Also, when they were growing up, they were taught the kind of love they received was conditional, right? So could it be because they believe in conditional love? And the conditional love means you have to do things right. You have to always get things right. And when you don't get it right, it becomes a problem that child. I was talking to again, my children, like I said, my children are young adults now, and I was talking a few minutes ago or maybe earlier on this week and talking about the fact that what my child has done does not define who that child is. It might get me mad, it might get me angry. In fact, sometimes you're angry and you say the things that you shouldn't say, but it is not my child. It is what my child has done. Being able to separate my child from whatever they have done so that my love for that child can remain unconditional, can remain intact. It's very, very important. So all of this are more probably the reason why dad is there every day, but I still feel fatherless. But what can we begin to do better so that our children, as we begin to have children, our children are growing? I felt all that way. Are my children feeling the same way? That's a question I want to put out there again. Am I there every day and my child is feeling motherless or feeling fatherless or feeling parentless, right? Here are things that you can do as a person to heal from what you feel from where you were a child. One, acknowledge it. A lot of people say, oh, that's how my parents raised me and this is who I am today. And I ask the question, explain who you are. Some people say that's how my parents raised me and this is who I have become. Explain who you have become and what is the definition, or how have you rated who you have become versus who you shouldn't have, or you should have become. So acknowledge the pain, acknowledge your journey, acknowledge the things you wish you had but did not have. Now, acknowledge. I'm laying emphasis on the word acknowledge because Acknowledging doesn't necessarily mean accepting that that's who you are and all of that. So acknowledge that, and as you have acknowledged it, God help me this today, my battery is running low again. Um, as you have acknowledged it, begin to think about how you can live above it. So, one of the ways to live above it is forgive the people involved. One day, I wrote my book not so long ago. It's actually almost a year now. The Miracle of Becoming, right? The miracle of my journey, becoming who I am today. You can check out the book on Amazon. So if you go on Amazon, just type Bukola Julugo and it will pop up. But if you want, you feel, oh, I don't have Amazon, or Amazon is not as reliable where I am, or I want it another way, drop a message or in the chat, and we'll reach out to you to find a way of getting the book to you, right? Or Tim, please, if you can, just quickly drop the link on of how people can get the book, The Miracle of Becoming, on here. So I was writing, but I was talking about the book Miracle of Becoming, right? And my journey. And one of the things that someone who read the book asked is, so how did you live above all of these things? I said a few things. I acknowledged all of the things and all of the pains and all of those experiences. Two, I forgave the people that were involved, right? I forgave everyone that was involved in all of those journeys, right? Three, I searched for the beautiful things in the journey. So I acknowledged, I forgave, I searched for the beautiful things. So intentionally looking, okay, this happened. What is the beauty in this? Because for me, there is always a beauty in disguise in every situation. So I searched for the beauty in the journey, right? Now, acknowledged, forgave the people, searched for the beauty, and then I forgave the situation. Now, somebody said to me, how do you forgive the situation? You forgive the situation by looking at the situation, one, searching for the beauty in the situation of the things that happen, two, telling yourself about the situation and how it made you feel, which is part of acknowledging, but now, most importantly, thanking God for the situation. Now, Joseph was in the prison, and while he was in the prison, how he got to the prison was the situation, right? But he forgave the situation by making sure he made beauty out of that situation. So, what is the situation I have been through? For some people, it's rape, sexual assault. Forgiving the situation and making sure nobody else goes through that kind of situation as far as you can. Help it. Does that make sense? So that's what forgiving this, making beauty. So remember, I said looking for the beauty in the situation, but even the nasty part of the situation, making it beautiful for yourself. How do I make it beautiful for myself? One of the things for me was the fact that I said, I don't want to go into details because if I go into details about the book, what things in the book, I might not leave here today. But an example was at the point where I was assaulted or almost assaulted. Making beauty out of the situation is saying to myself, as long as I live and it's within my power, no child will go through that around me. So my eyes are open, my nose open, my ears open. I mean, how come these are ears, right? My ears are open, my nose open, my eyes open, and I'm watching out for other people. I'm watching out for other children. Another way is at some point in my life, I felt parentless. So making sure that my children never feel parentless. So how do I make sure my children never feel parentless? Asking them for feedback, building connection with them. So I said, acknowledge the situation that you went through. forgive the people that are involved. Forgive the situation. Look for beauty in the situation. And the things that seem not so beautiful in the situation, making beautiful things out of them. Right? So what we're talking about is ways to come out of, for living above whatever it is that you feel you went through with your parents. And then at the end of those, so we've talked about five. The last one for me is how do I know that I'm living above that? When you're able to talk about it and you don't feel bitter, you don't feel the need to do the same thing to somebody else, you can review yourself and be sure that you're not doing the same thing to somebody else. Remember the last one. Review yourself, your life, your journey, your habits, your relationships, to be sure that you're not doing that same thing to somebody else. Once you have not acknowledged it, once you have not forgiven the people, once you have not forgiven the situation, you are prone to do the same thing to other people. And once all of that is done, you know that you're on the journey to healing. Right? Now, how do we now begin to make sure that our children do not inherit this pattern? How do we make sure that this pattern is not passed on to the next generation? Haven't done all of that. The key thing for me is continuous review, continuous self-check, continuous self-analysis, behavioral analysis of yourself, and feedback. Now, feedback is being able to ask the people around you what you're doing well and what you could get better in. So when you do retrospective sections at work, right, you're asking what has gone well, what should we continue to do, what should we stop doing, what should we start doing. That is a good feedback loop. And it's okay to teach your family members how to give good feedback. Good feedback, I look at the sandwich approach, the good, the not so good, and the good. And then also talking about good feedback, I learned not too long ago, the situation, be clear on what the situation is, how it happened, when it happened, the behavior of the person when that thing happened. And three, the third one, how it's made you feel. Right now, not how it made them feel, you focus how it's made you feel. And then lastly, asking them how it's made them feel and what you guys can do better. It's one thing that my son taught me. When I say this, that, I say, okay, mom, so what do we replace this with? So you want to take your child's phone. I'm not saying take your child's phone, but this is an example of a situation. Now, that phone, you're spending too much time on that phone. I'm taking that phone away from you. I'm fine, you take the phone away from me, but what do we replace this phone with? You should be able to identify, when I'm taking this away, what do I replace this with? Which is when you give feedback, this is how you behave. Now, the analogy that we talked about at work was, because this was a feedback workshop at work. Now, we talk about the situation when it happened, and then the behavior. So the scenario was that the role play was, you were doing a presentation at work and a colleague was busy on their phone, right? Now, when that colleague was busy on their phone, how did that make you feel? I mean, when did that happen? Why were in a meeting? What were they doing? They were busy on their phone. What did that make you feel? It made me feel like I wasn't delivering my workshop properly, or I was boring you, or I wasn't making sense to you, or that you already know this thing and you didn't feel the need to be there. Now listen for them to respond and then agree on what can we do better next time. I hope this has helped. I'm going to leave it here today so that we don't drag it too long, and for the people who want to watch the replay, it's not so long for them. I hope this has helped. This is going to be a weekly thing, so I'm looking forward to having you next week, Friday at 12 noon, 12:15. Right? This time, because of technical issues, we've moved it, but I said to myself, we must have this session today because we had that technical issue last week as well, right? But hey, we conquered it, we won it. But before I dial out, I just want to say, please, if you're watching this replay, I would like to invite you to our 10th anniversary Dad and I dinner. Dad and I dinner is a dinner, an exclusively created dinner where we gather fathers and their sons, host them to a beautiful and exclusive time for them to dine together, play together, eat together, and celebrate their journey together, the journey of fatherhood and sonship. A lot of people have said, how about the mothers? We're coming. But for now, our focus is on the fathers because that's what we're building right now. And we've been doing this for 10 years. This is a time for you to join us. We're going to be dropping it in the chat, the link for you to be able to know more, but you can just type Dad and I Dinner 2026 on Google or on your search engine and it will pop up. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to having you next week, Friday. Have a beautiful weekend and God bless you. Ciao, ciao.